So like I mentioned in previous episodes here on the channel, I had a private math teacher back in high school who was a huge progressive rock fan, thus his musical recommendations were vital in my album discovery path. He was kind enough to make cassette copies and quickly realized I was an ELP fan. In between his rock lectures, he reminded me that Love Beach sucked, but he considered In the Hot Seat their worst. So one day he asked me, JCM, have you listened to ELP's live record? I heard pictures at exhibition and one of my mom's friends made me a cassette copy of In Concert. So I said, which of these two? No, the other one. I'll bring you a copy next week. And just like that, he brought me a burned CD copy, complete with artwork, photocopies he'd cut and paste himself. The black album cover kind of reminded me of Led Zeppelin's The Song Remains the Same. It was an underwhelming image, and that handwritten title reminded me of Santana's Welcome for some reason. The 3D text effect sent childhood flashbacks of Friday the 13th Part 2 3D. Yeah, those were the kind of films I watched as a kid. But my album cover animosity was eased the minute I looked at the track listing. I couldn't believe my eyes. As a teenager who began his classic rock journey with brain salad surgery, this live album seemed impossible. I asked my teacher, you mean these guys played Carnival 9 in its entirety? All 35 minutes of it? He smiled back and said, yes. He did warn me though about the album's live recording sound quality, but I didn't care. I headed home to experience the 2 CDR set. Start to finish, my first impression was absolute joy. It made my appreciation for ELP grow exponentially. Whoever dared to criticize them, this album was a perfect reply. Not only great studio musicians, but live performers of the highest caliber. No overdubs, just prime musicianship. Now I tried to find the official release for years for my collection, but it seemed this was the sole ELP album that you never found at record stores. And like I later found out, progressive rock fans criticized the live recording being quite distant and muddy. Years later, I got a copy of Then and Now, based on the album cover, as I was now an H.R. Giger fan myself. I had the Taschen book, which I took to my Christian high school one day. This photograph got me in serious trouble. This one too. Oh yeah, and this one. And they confiscated my cassette copy of Brain Salad Surgery. I made things worse by telling them the original painting had to be airbrushed, because it featured a Although Then and Now didn't have Tarkus on it, I very much enjoyed the sound, and this became my go-to live ELP release. I slowly drifted away from Welcome Back My Friends. The album cover didn't help, nor the fact it had a similar design and color palette to Works 1. It wasn't Love Beach level of design, but still an uninviting cover. I resorted to their debut, Brain Salad Surgery, and I'm not ashamed to admit it, 1994's The Best of ELP. I know, a greatest hits compilation, my bad. But things changed as I recently did some OCD maintenance work on my CD collection and realized I hadn't heard this record for over a decade. And so I did, and the memories came back. A statement of power, dominance, and sonic battlefields. Let's dive deep into the events and mindset of one of rock and roll's finest power trios, pulling a brain salad surgery on the world through a triple vinyl release. This is the untold story behind the recording, and who's to blame for the sound quality. A voyage into setlist changes that showed a new side of ELP. Also, we'll take a look at a very demanding concert tour that produced some of the most legendary shows of their career. The band at their very peak, the spirit of 1973 going into 1974. This is the making of Welcome Back My Friends to the Show That Never Ends. Ladies and gentlemen, Emerson, Lake, and Palmer. Our story begins at Waitrose & Partners, a British supermarket at 392 North End Road in Fulham, London, a historic rock and roll location and landmark for ELP fans. It was January 1973. Emerson and Palmer enjoyed a well-deserved break after playing 97 shows in 1972. ELP's live show reputation grew as one of the most exciting groups, led by Keith's insanity, Greg's wisdom, and Carl's endless stamina. Most recent album Trilogy matched previous sales numbers, with lead single From the Beginning, their last Billboard Hot 100 entry of the 70s. Trilogy's publishing was credited to Manticore Limited. This was a roadmap for the band to set their own record label, Manticore Records, with the Tarkus Gateful Animal as logo. But their big plans didn't stop there. They wanted to outdo themselves for their next studio album. Their ambition required unlimited rehearsal time, and so they bought an abandoned cinema in Fulham, London. The Regal Cinema opened its doors in 1935 and was operated by the Associated British Cinemas. It was renamed ABC in 1962 before closing on February 12, 1972, the same day the Faces played London's Rainbow Theatre, while David Bowie rocked London's Imperial College. You can see what the inside of Manticore Studios looked like on these photographs from Led Zeppelin's 1977 tour rehearsals, as well as Roxy Music's 1979 single Dance Away, which was shot on location. Sources state musicians would hang out at the Golden Lion pub after working long hours at Manticore. ELP rented the main cavernous hall or movie theater space for bands, while they used the main foyer for rehearsals. The old projection room upstairs was now the Manticore label office for paperwork and progressive rock discussions, where they were constantly on the lookout to sign the next big thing. Manticore was busy. First group on their list was Stray Dog. Originally known as Aphrodite, they were an American blues rock band. The Manticore connection was made through one of ELP's former road managers, Neville Chesters. They flew to England to meet the band, and Greg Lake signed them to Manticore, while producing 3 songs from their self-titled debut.
Just keep right on floating, got no roots that I can see. I was born blessed with a song I couldn't even sing. That is why I'm here today. Yeah. The rhythm I'm singing really makes it on the scene. Got everything you need, and it seems quite rude indeed. Satisfaction guaranteed, but make it snap.
Second band on Manticore's roster was Hanson. No, not that Hanson, but rock, funk, and soul Hanson. Their debut, Now Hear This, was released in 1973 with experienced studio cats including vocalist Bob Tench and bass player Clive Chaman. You can hear both these names on Jeff Beck Group's 1971 release, Rough and Ready. Lead singer was Junior Hanson, also known as Junior Marvin. He ended up joining Bob Marley and the Wailers in 1977. In-house ELP lyricist Peter Sinfield was next, with the release of Still, his only solo album to date with a long list of personnel, including Greg Lake on backing vocals, electric guitar on one track, co-producer and mixing. Steel guitar duties were handled by BJ Cole, who also played on Kiki D's solo stuff. You can check my retrospective on her here on the channel. Bass guitar duties were handled by many names including John Wetton and soon-to-be Bad Company Boz Burrell. King Crimson's own Mel Collins provided his flute and saxophone talents throughout the record. Stray Dog's own Snuffy Walden can be heard on guitar. Italian progressive rock giants Premiata Forneria Marconi were signed in 1973. They released several albums with Manticore, beginning with Photos of Ghosts. Peter Sinfield provided English lyrics for the highly anticipated follow-up to 1972's Per un amico. The new rehearsal space gave ELP much freedom to work on the incredibly complex arrangements of new numbers on their drawing board. Such was the case of Toccata, an adaptation of a classical piano concerto by Argentinian composer Alberto Ginastera. Keith Emerson's first exposure to the piece can be traced back to 1970, and the switched-on symphony TV special featuring names like Jethro Tull, Santana, and The Nice. Among the list of classical performers was Brazilian virtuoso pianist João Carlos Martins. A child prodigy, he emerged as one of the top classical performers in the world. His critically acclaimed 1968 RCA release, Concerto for Piano and Orchestra, was a celebration of Alberto Ginastera's brilliance, with one of the movements by the name of Toccata. Fast forward 1970 and Keith Emerson witnessed the maestro perform the sounds of ELP's future. He approached Martins with lots of questions. He later bought the album and sheet music to embark on a passion project that found its way as brain salad surgery material. Also on the list was a Greg Lake ballad, Still You Turn Me On, looking to balance out the progressive rock frenzy, with yet another acoustic number looking to extend the Lucky Man and From the Beginning hit single formula. In the year of hit albums Harvest and America's Debut, there were good reasons for Lake to reprise his acoustic role. Add in John Denver's Rocky Mountain High, entering the charts in late November 1972, and Greg Lake was something like prog rock's John Denver, a great thing to be. I personally like John Denver's music big time. But it was of course Carnival 9, the centerpiece that drove them mad through long and tedious rehearsal sessions. Every bar and every element, a non-stop challenge pushing their power trio abilities to the extreme, and to some degree, the end of an era, with a sister song to Tarkus, but crazier. The very thing jealous music critics who couldn't play an instrument to save their lives would later accuse ELP of musical excess. I call it genius. A 22-date European tour was booked March 30th through May 4th, 1973. This was the subject of a BBC documentary that followed them around on their travels through the old continent. ELP visited Germany, Belgium, France, Switzerland, where the band met H.R. Giger and found their next album cover, Denmark, Austria, and a loyal progressive rock fan base in Italy. 4 shows in France were cancelled due to riots and political tensions at the time, which not only affected ELP, but many shows organized by French radio RTL. Such were the negative vibes and press for some of these bands that Led Zeppelin never came back to France. ELP's Italian run had 2 shows postponed out of Greg Lake succumbing to the flu. 3 new songs were added on the setlist as precious tryouts to further understand the material's concert potential. Carnival 9, Still You Turn Me On, and Toccata were played 7, 8, and 9 times respectively. Performing these tracks was key for Brain Salad Surgery's overall concept of using little to no studio overdubs. While Trilogy was an achievement in sound, they took creative liberties in the studio that came back to haunt them, as some of the cuts like The Endless Enigma proved challenging to replicate on stage. Thus Emerson was determined not to face these limitations again. A terrific live band from day one, they made sure Brain Salad Surgery kept their winning framework strong. Where most bands needed 5 or 6 members on stage, ELP was a power of 3, and they could do it live.
Okay. We'll do it live. Okay. We'll do it live! Fuck it! Do it live! I'll write it and we'll do it live! Right. Thing sucks!
Do you wanna be the lover of another? Undercover, you could even be the man on the moon. You turn me on, yes you do. You turn me on. You can sing my song. You put me back where I belong. You can find me when I'm gone. Alright, we've got some new stuff to play here. I don't know what the name of this thing is, but we're gonna do it anyway.
Recording sessions for Brain Salad Surgery began at Olympic Studios London, where some of Manticore labels' Stray Dogs' debut was done. Led Zeppelin also captured a couple of tracks here for their Houses of the Holy sessions, which you can watch on my Making of series here on the channel. Additional ELP recording dates were held in Fitzrovia, London at Advision Studios, where Yes did Close to the Edge, Down by the Corner, Down at the Edge, Round by the River. Sorry, I got carried away with Yes lyrics. Final mixing sessions for the new album took place in October 1973, while the band began tour rehearsals for their 5th visit to North America. Brain Salad Surgery was a title that sources state came out of a Dr. John song, Right Place, Wrong Time. This is a song that, according to Jason Bonham, he was playing at his house when they shot the footage for The Song Remains the Same. He said his father was a huge fan of this song. So because this is a YouTube video, I will just say Brain Salad Surgery was a variation on the original band title of Whip Some Skull on You, which is an innuendo pertaining intimate bonding activities between rock stars and groupies. The 5th North American Someone Get Me a Ladder tour had an ambitious initial setlist of Hoedown, followed by new track Jerusalem, ELP's wonderful adaptation of the old British hymn written in 1916, with words inspired by William Blake's 1804 poem, And Did Those Feet in Ancient Time. It was not well received in the UK, with some critics questioning the band's decision to cover this. Toccata and Tarkus were next for a double progressive rock attack, with Alberto Ginastera himself giving Keith Emerson his personal blessing on Toccata. He said horrible when he heard the studio recording, but what he meant was it sounded sinister, dark, terrific. Tension Release Benny the Bouncer said the controls were the soft part of the show. Drake Lake's showcase with Take a Pebble, Lucky Man, Still You Turn Me On played on selected North American dates of 1973, and Keith Emerson's piano improvisations back into Take a Pebble. Next on the setlist were two epic numbers. The complete Carnival 9 suite with all three impressions was harder to perform than Tarkus because of its relentless nature and fast-tempo riffing, soloing, and Greg Lake's energized singing throughout. They somewhat slowed things down a bit for a 20-plus minute encore, pictures at exhibition, in its entirety. Audiences couldn't ask for more. ELP always went the extra mile. The main difference in this setlist compared to 1972 is most of the trilogy material was gone, except for Hoedown, in tune with their no studio overdub concept. Now their setlist wasn't the only thing stepping into more complex ventures, but their stage show required up to 70 roadies and more to set up, including a backdrop featuring changing images, including H.R. Giger's artwork. Most important about this tour was sound engineers working very hard at every venue to set the innovative quadraphonic PA system to blow people's minds. Not the first band to do it, but ELP certainly made the most of this as their music became a 3D experience to further enhance the audience's sonic trip. Because the technology was adopted by record companies in the early 70s through vinyl, it was a thrilling experience to export this into arenas. Who better to use this than the progressive rock kings of the 70s? It was the right time for ELP to hit North America. Both Led Zeppelin and Pink Floyd had completed their respective visits June and July 1973, but Floyd raised the stakes with Dark Side of the Moon, meaning ELP's brain salad surgery had to be great to have a chance at competition. The Who would play some 11 Quadrophenia dates in late November, December, but the main star in the rock and roll market was ELP. Emerson & Palmer's North American tour kicked off on the same day Billy Joel's Piano Man was released, November 14th, 1973. Among hit singles that week was Gladys Knight's Midnight Train to Georgia. ELP took a midnight plane to Florida for 2 nights at Miami's High Life Fronton with guest band their Manticore prodigies Stray Dog, which the local press said will not be a memorable group. Ouch. Stray Dog would remain the tour's opener, enduring harsh metaphoric tomatoes thrown by unimpressed critics, but they were thankful their Manticore bosses gave them the opportunity of a lifetime. The press did have kind words for ELP, including their dramatic smoke and programmed machine ending of Carnival 9, Third Impression. Their 2-hour show was a frenetic experience to be witnessed by hungry rock fans, or in some cases, hungry and stoned rock fans. ELP released a promo flexi disc just in time for their tour, made up of album snippets and Brain Salad Surgery, the song, which was later recycled for Works 2. You'd think they went for Still You Turn Me On as single, but no, Jerusalem was chosen instead, with a long titled B-side that also ended up on Works Volume 2. BBC banned the song from radio airplay. It was a strange single selection indeed. The band played some 26 shows all the way through December. 8 exhilarating bootleg recordings from this late 1973 period have been circulating for years, and it makes you wonder, why didn't ELP choose to record any of these concerts, as the musicianship overall is breathtaking. Brain Salad Surgery was released via Manticore Records on December 7th, 1973, just as the band took the stage at Canada's historic Maple Leaf Gardens. ELP played their final shows of 1973 at New York's premier venue, Madison Square Garden, in what many considered to be some of the greatest concerts of their entire career, and one of the favorite bootlegs among collectors. I guess Led Zeppelin playing there in July left very good vibes. ELP was back on the road in late January, with 5 shows including 2 Rocky Mountains region dates, Denver and Salt Lake City. Hype around their tour was real, and plans were made for a King Biscuit Flower Hour transmission. An American syndicated radio, it made its debut in February 1973, allowing fans to experience their favorite bands through their mobile truck recording live programs. King Biscuit's shows included Rod Stewart and the Faces March 1973, Slade in May, The Stones in both September and October, Steve Miller Band in October, Poco November 11th, and The Who on December 4th and the 6th. The story of ELP's live album pretty much resembles the script for Genesis' superb but underrated concert release of July 1973. It was recorded by King Biscuit but never broadcasted. Genesis' manager decided it would be a good promo piece to put out while they finished selling England by the pound. So a venue was chosen and ELP would be captured live on stage on their February 1st and 2nd dates at the Anaheim Convention Center in California. Note, some online entries state a February 10th entry for ELP, but it's false. Based on dedicated ELP fan archives, They were actually taking a day off between their San Bernardino and Seattle dates on the 10th. Now, the Anaheim Convention Center may sound familiar, as the annual NAMM show is held here every January, bringing together professional musicians, vendors, and amateur musicians from around the world. While the Anaheim Convention Center has changed appearance many times, the original arena opened its doors in 1967 with a brief stint as home to basketball team Anaheim Amigos. They quickly left for Los Angeles, but the arena was used for many events, including concerts.
Announcing the arrival of Jefferson Airplane
and The Doors. Saturday, July 15th, 2 spectacular performances featuring Jefferson Airplane.
Jefferson Airplane. Doors. New Anaheim Convention Center. Don't miss it.
A double bill of Jefferson Airplane and The Doors was the first rock and roll show on July 15th, 1967. Other spectacles included classical music, boxing, ballet, and the Don Adams Show. While it looked cool from the outside, the convention center's design proved a troubled space for live sound engineers, battling the curve-shaped roof, which made for a bouncing nightmare effect. By the time ELP was next, there had been 159 shows performed there since 1967, with names like Donovan, the Bee Gees, Vanilla Fudge, Jimi Hendrix and the Animals, Cream, Donovan Part 2, Steppenwolf, Creedence, Iron Butterfly plus opening band Chicago, my favorite band Led Zeppelin and special guest Jethro Tull on August 9th, 1969, Joe Cocker and Grand Funk, Jefferson Airplane Part 2, plus Hot Tuna and It's a Beautiful Day, A Show I Wouldn't Want to Go, Neil Diamond and Linda Ronstadt, A Show I Would Go, Spirit in the Sky Hitman, Norman Greenbaum, Grand Funk, Three Dog Night, Guess Who, A Killer Combo, Deep Purple and Mallow, Elton John with opener Family, Elvis Presley himself in April, Procol Harum, The Faces, and the Beach Boys on November 16th, 1973 as the last show before Emerson, Lake and Palmer. Legendary taper Mike Millard, famous for his great sounding bootlegs, including Led Zeppelin June 1977, which you can watch my retrospective here on the channel, captured ELP's first night at Anaheim, where you can hear some feedback issues because of the venue's roof design. ELP's setlist on February 1st was shorter with no encore. They reserved a special but weird surprise for Saturday, February 2nd. A 2-song medley happened before Carnival 9. Jeremy Bender from Tarkus and The Sheriff from Trilogy hadn't been performed since select dates on their European tour April through May 1973. ELP's February 2nd concert was broadcasted on FM radio via King Biscuit's Flower Hour. Wally Heider's mobile recording unit was called in for the job, the same unit that captured Led Zeppelin's legendary 1973 shows on The Song Remains the Same. Wally Heider was also responsible for the November 1973 recordings by Commanders Live from Deep in the Heart of Texas and Brian Auger's Oblivion Express Volume 1. They continued in December with Frank Zappa and the Mothers' groundbreaking series of shows, Roxy and Elsewhere, and Marvin Gaye Live, recorded on January 4th, 1974. Past their Anaheim Convention Center date, ELP carried on with the tour, playing 23 more concerts before a grand finale at the Ontario Motor Speedway, aka California Jam or Cal Jam, April 6, 1974, where Keith Emerson pretty much stole the show with a flying piano. The band didn't take much vacation time, moving on to a small UK tour April 18th through May 1st, and then on to a European tour May 7th through June 1st, with opening band jazz rock virtuosos Backdoor still promoting their second album 8th Street Nights, produced by Cream's own Felix Pappalardi. I recommend checking these guys out. A Sounds magazine article was released back then, with Greg Lake trying to explain the reasons ELP decided to record Jerusalem, as well as his takes on religion, writing lyrics, and life on the road. A second tour was to begin in late July 1974, so the band used Pressure's downtime at their Manticore offices to agree on a new project. They went over their notes and realized the King Biscuit FM recordings were really good. They were very happy with their performance and greenlighted a release. So what was the other recording besides Anaheim, you ask? A Tulsa, Oklahoma show, April 2nd, 1974, just 4 days before California Jam. This was released until 1997 for a King Biscuit Flower Hour Greatest Hits Live release. Disc 1, tracks 11 through 14, and track 1 from Disc 2. Note, these were credited with the wrong date of March 7th. I guess nobody at the King Biscuit label did their homework. So ELP went for the Anaheim show instead. A long title was chosen based on how British DJ Peter Murray introduced them on stage, as well as the opening lines for Carnival 9 First Impression Part 2. A second live ELP album was long overdue considering the band's explosive live offering. They had a 1972 Marisol Festival Puerto Rico in the archives, but decided to shelve this monster release for 39 years. I seriously recommend getting this album, it's incredible. Now because they had pictures at exhibition, it made sense to put the Marisol setlist on hold and use a 1974 snapshot instead, featuring brain salad surgery material while leaving pictures out of the equation. Their brand new studio album peaked at number 11 on Billboard's 200 chart back in January, with a steady decline despite big record sales and money coming in. It seemed natural for a 70s prog band to have both live and studio outputs to further push their band. Both Santana's triple vinyl fan favorite, Lotus, and Rick Wakeman's hugely successful Journey to the Center of the Earth, released in May 1974, further motivated Manticore Records to follow their footsteps. Designer Michael Ross was hired for the artwork. His recent album covers included Elton John and his Rocket Record Company releases. He also worked on the Beach Boys in concert, but it seems ELP's imagery was based on Michael Ross's 1972 design for the Edward Woodward album, a solid color backdrop, band title, and frame. Rock photographer Carl Dunn was hired to go on tour with the ELP, including California Jam, where several shots were considered for the live album, but eventually discarded in favor of a late 1973 indoor arena photo chosen for the gatefold. I seriously think this should have been the album cover instead. The cheesy 3D text effect works better, but I guess they went for a Santana Lotus approach. Their triple vinyl set included cut-out versions of their initials. This ambitious design was cool but not very practical, and hurt the carton in the long run when you try to get the vinyl records out. This is why it's common to find worn-out copies with the letters falling off. In-house Manticore engineer Andy Hendrickson was brought in to work on the stuff American counterpart Peter Granite captured back in California. So what happened to the mix? They created a downscaled version of their live quadraphonic mix on vinyl, but it seems they compromised the stereo effect, leading to the distant reverb sound fans complain about. Original plans included a quadraphonic vinyl release that never saw the light of day, so the final result was wishful thinking to an extent. To further prove my point, there is a bootleg FM recording by the name of The Callow and Crash and Idolize. This release is much more balanced and further amplifies the band's incredible performance that night. Now for some shocking Billboard 200 charts. Welcome back, my friends, to The Show That Never Ends was the band's highest charting album of the 70s at number 4, just one step above Trilogy. Looking at the rest of the albums on the list is quite telling. The whole Works concept would have worked better,
pun superintended,
as a live release as opposed to separate studio albums, but such is life, right? By the time 1979's In Concert was out, it was a bit too late. Vinyl, cassette, double 8-track, and reel-to-reel editions were released in August 1974. ELP returned to the States for a short but highly profitable 16 concert run, including 3 festival appearances. This boosted catalog sales, and most important, it was a perfect vehicle in support of Welcome Back My Friends. Once again, with neither Led Zeppelin nor Pink Floyd touring America, plus Yes and Deep Purple taking a small break from it, ELP made the right move, taking their 36-ton gear back on the road for more virtuoso spellbending performances. Other 1974 shows were officially released as the original bootleg series from the Manticore Vaults, Volume 2, with Wichita, Kansas wrongfully dated March 26th, when it actually took place on the 29th, and Buffalo, New York, July 26th. The band played their last US show at Philadelphia's Spectrum on August 21st, before taking a well-deserved break, but if we really look into it, it was more like a friendly breakup of spirits. They were burnt out, creative juices dry, and 6 glorious records behind them. They could have called it quits here with a perfect catalog. It seems their live album was prophetic, as in, enjoy the triple vinyl set because we'll be off the road for almost 3 years. Both the album cover and musical contents signaled into works 1, Greg Lake's acoustic spot, Keith Emerson's long piano improvisations, and Carl Palmer's drum constructions. The band went for a long vacation that, while necessary, deeply hurt their momentum and unfairly made them a scapegoat for rock critics upon their 1977 return. Welcome Back My Friends has been released multiple times on the CD format, including my copy, which is the 1996 Rhino reissue, with no bonus tracks, despite Benny the Bouncer recorded back then. Although no changes were made to the mix, the latest versions, including the one on Spotify, seem to have slightly improved the sound. Anaheim's convention center witnessed some heavy brain salad surgery, and the show will never end. We can always go back to a record collection and play 109 minutes of pure progressive rock genius. I hope you enjoyed this making of episode, and remember you can support me by hitting the like button, sharing this on social media and online forums, as well as joining my Patreon or expressing your generosity via PayPal. I also want to remind you of my retrospectives on ELP's debut and Love Beach here on the channel. Thank you very much for watching. Until the next prog destination, bye bye.